Hello, everybody. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, engineers, friends, scientists, teachers, students from all over the world. We are honored to serve you with this seminar. Considerable amount of research, preparedness, and organization were spent to make this happen, and we are very happy about it. This is a very special period in human history, and we are very lucky to share these days with you, to network and share our experiences. People are working night and day to make this world safe and healthy. Billions of dollars are being spent on a daily basis. Germany spent 600 billion euros in 3 days to make sure that energy services are secured and all lines of defenses are operating to face this terrible disease. Unparalleled dedication, persistence, innovation, cooperation is ongoing all over the world. AEE is a big family in 105 countries. We have chapters in 105 countries. We have certified people in over 200 countries. We are faced with an unprecedented enemy that is using our natural behavior as a way to spread this infection, and it is doubling every week. We must change our behavior. It's as simple as that. We can do it, and it is doable, and we will win. This temporary ignorance of the way this virus is moving is going to change. During the past 4 months, over 2,000 research papers have been published, and over 200 research centers are working night and day, and over 80 trial vaccines are underway. So we are going to win. With this, I hope I gave you a good introduction to this seminar. Now I will ask Tim to proceed with the next item on the agenda.
Thank you, Samer. So we have a quick attendee poll for everybody on the webinar today. And if you wouldn't mind, just take 1 minute and tell us where you're from. Click on whatever is your most appropriate thing. It'll be open only for a minute, but it'll get done pretty quickly. Okay, thank you. I should introduce our panelists because you have a really distinguished group today. I'll take myself out of that group for a while, but Dr. Fatou Aragom is a friend, actually. I've known her for a while. She has a PhD from University of Florida, Gainesville in mechanical engineering. She serves as a research scientist and as the Energy Efficiency Technologies Program Manager at the Kuwait Institute for Scientific Research. When we visited KISR, Kuwait Institute, a number of years ago, it was the first time we ever had a billboard welcoming the trade mission. It was pretty impressive, right? She has 25 years experience in the field of energy engineering, and she is the Assistant Director for International Development for the Middle East region, and currently AEE Secretary at the board level. Okay. So quick review of poll results. Lauren, you've already closed the poll. So the bulk of our attendees apparently are from North America, a smaller percentage from Europe, the Middle East, Asia, other. Okay. So interesting mix. Okay. There's over 500 of you already on the seminar. Now this is one of Samer's better pictures. He's supposed to laugh at that, but he'll get even with me. He's been very, very in the forefront. Yes. He's been very much in the forefront of dealing with the COVID-19 thing. Samer is a independent engineer. He's internationally recognized, got 26 years of management experience around the world. Okay. worked in extra heavy steel structure fabrication of power stations and refineries worldwide, and developed several wind energy projects in Jordan. He's working on the Jordan Renewable Readiness Assessment with IRENA, the Jordan Climate Change Stakeholders Dialogue, to initiate the carbon market and finance energy efficiency, renewable energy, utility scale wind, and PV projects development. And the first consultant to start implementing the Jordan Green Building Code rating system. In his spare time, although there's a rumor he never sleeps, he is a lecturer at the Al Hussein Technical University. And I think Samer has charted more student chapters than anybody in the world. That's congratulations, Samer. So that's for myself.
Thank you, sir.
You're very welcome and deserving. I've been associated with AEE for about 39 years. I'm an international instructor, an AEE fellow, member of the Hall of Fame, CEM, CEA, CIEP, and a few others. Currently serving as the AEE treasurer. So you have 3 of your board members sitting here today. Kind of interesting. Lauren, I need a slide. Thank you. So we want you to be able to ask questions during this panel. And if you look at your control panel, which should have popped up when you logged in, you'll see that there's a section down here for questions. And you can just really type in towards the bottom here, whatever question you want. And they'll go into a queue. We'll attempt to maybe pick out a few select ones during the webinar today, but as you can imagine, with almost 600 people already on, it might be tough to go through all of them, but we appreciate your comments and questions in that slot. So at this point, I would like to turn this over to Fatu, who is the one who developed the SurveyMonkey poll that many of you completed. And you've got some interesting analysis here, and I'm sure you'll find this very interesting. Fatu, take it away.
Thank you, Tim, and thank you for the introduction. I'm glad to be here with you all today. And what I'm going to do first, I'm going to go through the survey that most of you have seen. And I would like to start by saying that as we all know, that the current pandemic has caused an unprecedented global health, economic, and social crisis, like Samer mentioned, that has significantly affected all aspects of our lives. And in order to prevent the spread of the virus, several measures have been undertaken by numerous countries around the world. And these measures that we are all actually going through nowadays is like things like shelter in place, stay-at-home orders, lockdown, and social distancing. And of course, these measures, while they're meant to protect our health, they've affected our daily work, home, and social patterns. And some industries have shut down their factories. Government closed some of their offices. People are staying at home working from their houses. And the internet use have increased for work, socialization, entertainment. Hospitals are being overwhelmed and schools are closed down. From all what I've mentioned, definitely all these have affected the power demand and energy requirement. I need to take care, okay, sorry. So we wanted to, the control, sorry. Okay, so we conducted the questionnaire that most of you have seen. And through the AEE, we reached out to our global network to shed some light on the national energy consumption situation in various countries with respect to the current pandemic. So this questionnaire was formulated. We've got 18 questions, and it was open for about a week. About 421 responded to this questionnaire. from 37 countries, including the United States. The majority were from international participants, about 77%, and 23 were from the United States, from 29 states in the USA. From the international participants, we had 43 from the Middle East, and 22% were from the sub-Saharan African countries. Most of the participants held a bachelor or master's degree of a professional degree. So in the questionnaire, we asked them about what was the impact of the current pandemic on the energy consumption in the different sectors. So first we asked about the residential sector. So as you can see in this graph, the majority is, and also the graphs you're going to be seeing on this side will be the increase. On the other side, the blue chart, bars are the decrease. And we had different ranges, if it's below 10%, if it's medium increase or decrease between 10 or 25, or if it's a high increase above 25%. We had an option of no change or no information as well. So in the residential sector, the majority said that there's going to be an increase in the energy consumption, and that's basically because most of us are staying at home and working from home, which is logical. Now for the industrial sector, the majority predicted a decrease in the energy consumption, and there is a high decrease and there is the medium decrease, but the majority predicted, of course, that there is going to be a decrease in energy consumption, and that's basically, even though some of the industries, such as the food industry, maybe are working overtime, but major industries such as car manufacturers were actually closed down some of their factories. Now, the other sector was the commercial sector. Oh, God. Okay. So sorry about that, but it's speeding up. The commercial sector, most of the respondents predicted a decrease in the energy consumption because, of course, the malls, mainly the malls are closed, and everyone's probably, if they're shopping, they're shopping online. So the majority predicted a high decrease in the energy consumption. Now for transportation, again, because of the lockdown, the majority predicted, more than half have predicted a high decrease in the transportation sector, and as well, this is mainly for the lockdown as well. Now for the agriculture sector, 25% said there is no change, and mainly because probably they thought, of course, well, we have to eat, you know. 21% they had no idea or no information, while the others, like around 42%, thought that there will be a decrease in energy consumption in this sector. And they probably thought that this decrease is due to the closure of restaurants, eateries, shops. Actually, some farmers who were like main customers were in the food services supply chain probably temporarily ceased their operations because of lack of demand and because of the blockage in the road transport. That also affected the food supply and everything. So that's why you would see some like prevented some from investing in this sector as well, and that's probably what explains the decline in the energy required for the agriculture sector. Now for the water sector, of course, because of the current situation and sanitization issues, we have to keep ourselves clean to prevent the spread of the virus. Some actually have predicted, 48% predicted this increase in water use, and 33% predicted a decrease. In fact, actually New Delhi reported that the water consumption per person has increased by more than 60% in urban areas because of the disinfection issues and people trying to wash their hands and trying to prevent the spread of the virus. Now, in view of the effect of the pandemic on the ICT, we had a high percentage of uncertainty, 31%, and others, like 32%, said that there's going to be a high increase in demand. And of course, I'm going to show you later some numbers from around the world. And this basically because most of us are staying at home, working from home, socializing, having meetings, everything online. Now, we also asked them the question if they have some data in hand and if they can share it with us, and if they can compare the consumption of whatever, like let's say a city, a town, or a country compared to last year for the months of March and April. So April is in green, March is in blue. And there were, like mainly there's a decline in energy based on actual numbers, like actual consumption of energy, which the majority, like the maximum that we have seen in these numbers was a decrease of 43% in Kenya, and there was an increase of 17% compared to last year in Ghana. We also asked if they were aware of some initiatives, if their countries had some initiatives with respect to energy and the current COVID situation. Okay. So there were a lot of responses to these, but I've selected some of those that I thought are interesting. Like in Nigeria, there was an initiative to power some hospitals and isolation treatment centers with renewable energy because they wanted to make sure that they're going to have continuous sources of power. And another interesting initiative around the world, several countries had such a thing, which is a reduction of prices and payments with respect to energy. For example, someone said that in New Jersey, there were no shutoffs due to non-payment. And also in Canada, there is no time of use rates applied. And in UAE, there was a 10% discount in water and electricity consumption applied to the bills after March 12. For example, also in Ghana, the government was supporting tariff relief for the months of April, May, and June. So you can see that several countries have opted to relieve the residents from paying or decreasing the cost of energy. Also, there were like some stimulus packages in Europe and also in the United States. And these stimulus packages might include clean energy technologies. And in Jordan, there is an initiative to reconnect renewable energy projects on wheeling scheme. And Uganda, like there are some companies, there were some campaigns online to educate the people to become more efficient in terms of their home energy use. And these were mainly the findings from our questionnaire. And now I have a poll. I would like to ask you your opinion. If you support the government green, support a government green stimulus that includes supporting energy efficiency and renewable energy in post-COVID-19. That green initiative or not? So we're going to be running this poll for a minute. And actually, I would like to take this opportunity to thank everyone who took the time and participated in responding to our questionnaire. We really value your input. And actually, this contributed a lot to our webinar today. So what about the results? Still going to take probably a minute or so, just about a minute. Yeah. Are we going to see the, okay, here are the results. Okay, of course. So 88% said that they support the green stimulus. I wish that our governments throughout the world will start taking this into consideration, and hopefully we can use this to come out of this pandemic stronger. Now, the second thing that I would like to share with you, I tried to get some data, and you probably all know, probably most of you, that's why they registered in this webinar. Information is not widely available, especially right now for the current situation with respect to power and energy sector, but yet we tried to get some information. Here, like I would like to show you the situation in Europe, in some countries in Europe, from this source, in which the average daily electricity load from each week in 2020 as compared to the same week in 2019. And you can see, like, as soon as the lockdown started, the load started dropping, except few incidents, but mainly it was below than that of 2019. Now, India, New Delhi reported there was a drop of 25% in the load. Actually, that was on April 2nd, by about 43 gigawatts. So that's mainly because of the lockdown. India actually forced a 3-week lockdown. I think it was extended as well since March 24th. Now, another figure, this is if you go to this website and look into the energy consumption in Europe for over the past few weeks, and you can see if it's green, which means same like last year or just a little bit more than last year. Definitely if it goes into red, which means a drop up to 30%. So as we go through the weeks, you can see like the countries started with the lockdown, the energy consumption getting lower and lower. And if we reach, and this was, the first week was in March, actually, March 2nd, starting March 2nd. And as you can see, like the week 8, I have some numbers for you. Like the only country that had an increase was Switzerland, with 5.5% increase in energy, while other countries faced a reduction in energy. Like, for example, Germany, there was a drop by 10%, Poland by 13%, Spain by 10%. Now, for the transport sector, I thought this was interesting. These figures show you the average congestion per day between 2020 and 2019. And this line here would show you when the lockdown started in each city. So most of the cities, you can see like there is a drop in the number of congestions, of course, except Tokyo. It was just a little bit, a decline, but Tokyo, they did not enforce actually a lockdown, and that's probably why you can see this minimal decrease. The trains are still running and commuting is still going there in Tokyo. There was an interesting study conducted by Google, a research study by Google. It was on the Gulf countries, the GCC countries, including Kuwait, Qatar, Emirates, and Saudi, Oman, in which they started to check where people are going around when the lockdown started. And they've noticed that there was, of course, a huge decrease in commuting, especially to like malls and shopping areas. But people were commuting and they're going to mainly pharmacies and grocery shopping. And I thought that was a very interesting study to look at. So the average mobility was reduced in the GCC region during the first quarter by about 34%. So the effect on the ICT, of course, as we all know that we're basically online most of our time nowadays, there was a study conducted on OECD countries, and they've seen like there is a 60% increase in internet traffic, and you can see like different values for the different countries, but overall they've said that there was a 60% increase in internet traffic during this pandemic. Now, one more source I thought was interesting as well, that shows you the internet use. And as you can see from these graphs, compared to December 2019, You can see that there is an increase in the internet use, and the maximum you can see it happened in Poland, which was about 50% increase in internet use. So these are some of the figures that I thought might be interesting to share with you with respect to the current situation on the power and energy sector. So Tim, if there's any question that is of interest from the audience to me?
Yes, they've been coming in fast and furious. One that's pretty interesting and just a touch off what you actually were putting forth, but given the price of oil currently, which is very, very depressed, and I think Kuwait probably is at least significantly dependent on oil revenues. Is that going to make it harder for you to do renewables and energy efficiency projects?
Well, actually, I mean, maybe we just have to wait and see what's going to happen after this pandemic. Yes, of course, oil contributes to by about 40% of our national GDP, right? And yes. I think right now everyone is focusing on how we can recover from this pandemic and focus on the health sector. There are some deficiencies, and probably the government might start thinking about what we're going to do to avoid having such a situation later on. But let me tell you something, Tim. Not sure about the deficit situation which we might have because of the pandemic. The current price of oil right now for Kuwait export blend, I think as of today, is about $18 per barrel. It actually cost us in the Gulf region between $5 to $15 per barrel, and I think it is about $8 per barrel for Kuwait. So, and there are also other sources for our income, which is from international investments. I'm sure that they're not doing great nowadays because of the pandemic. So I would think probably let's just wait and see. And I would like to encourage our government not to step away from investing in renewable energy projects, because I think if we have learned something from this pandemic is it's very important to be secured and to be safe for the future.
Great. Thank you, Fatou. That was very insightful.
Thank you, Tim. Tim, it's yours now.
Lauren, can I have the side control?
Now we'll go to the global perspective.
Yeah, here we go. Thank you. So my task was to kind of get a global perspective on energy demand to see where things are going to go. So statistics were a little difficult to come by, as Fatou mentioned, but we did glom a bunch of information from the International Energy Agency and the Energy Information situation. So as you can see, in the first quarter of 2020, we have 3.8% drop. And the projections, and they don't give you their background data for this, but the International Energy Agency is predicting a 6% overall drop in 2020. It is the largest drop in history and the steepest decline in 70 years. So if you look at the graphic, you can see the significant happenings. The Spanish flu was brutal, Great Depression, World War II, oil shocks, the global financial crisis in 2008, and here we are over here in 2020 with a coronavirus. So lots of things affect this. The Lauren, I don't have control over the slides. Thank you. So we wanted to, thank you. Global energy demand needed looked at in a couple versions because some countries were in full lockdown, and those countries recorded a 25% decline in energy demand per week. And the partial lockdowns we're only 18%, still pretty significant. Now, the International Energy Agency has data for 30 countries, and that represents about 66% of the global energy demand. So that's a pretty large sample. Okay. The next slide, please. Coal. So our friend coal, well, or maybe nobody's friend coal, dropped 8% in the first quarter of 2020. Okay. Obviously, a significant impact on that was due to China's coal-based economy. But on the other hand, cheap natural gas and growth in renewables contribute to the overall decline in coal, and that's certainly a very good thing. Next slide, please. Oil was down by 5% in the first quarter of 2020. Keep in mind that transportation and aviation account for 60% of the global oil demand. Okay, and as Fatou mentioned, road transport is down dramatically. So natural gas, wow, this one only dropped by 2% in the first quarter. So gas-based economies were not beat up as much, but the price of natural gas right now is awfully attractive. So for generators or industry that have a choice of fuel, they're certainly going to go with the least cost fuel, and right now that's after renewables is natural gas. So when we talk about global energy demand for electricity, 20% for countries in full lockdown in the first quarter. Okay, we don't have data for April or May yet, but the increase in residential use is far outweighed by the reduction in industrial and commercial areas. And even though we had some answers to questions that predicted massive increases in residential use, I think that people are, the things you're running at home, you're running whether or not you're there. In the United States, it would not be unusual to have your wife at home and running the air conditioning and the rest of the things. So while there'll be some increase, it's not going to be, it shouldn't be dramatic. Okay. Global energy demand is down 5 to 10% for 2020. Okay. And it shouldn't say top, it should say 2. My apologies. Oil, of course, is kind of an interesting thing. Right now, the projection is that the United States will return to being a net importer of oil during 2020. And it'll possibly recover to being a net exporter by the start of 22. Why is that? Well, favorable pricing, for one thing. So the pricing is so favorable that oil's being imported and put in our storage because it's just a pure economic issue, right? So residential use is far outweighed by reduction in industrial and commercial areas. Right? Some good news for us in the U.S., EIA predicts that the average cost of gasoline for the balance of 2020 will be $1.86 a gallon, and that's fairly attractive. Yeah. So USA energy demand for natural gas, the prediction actually is that it's going to be about a 6% drop, the bulk of which is an assumed warmer than normal weather in the first quarter. Okay, commercial consumption, as you might imagine, it will be down 7% due to the slowing economy. Industrial forecast is kind of interesting. It's dropping down to 2019 levels. So the original projection was for about a 6.5% increase in 2020, but it appears that in fact we're going to be back at 2019 level. And honestly, we don't all have a clear path of understanding how things are going to come back up. Right? So USA energy demand for residential use is only dropping for a little less than 1% for the balance of 2020. Again, this is weather related, okay, and it's happening no matter the fact that many people are working from home. Commercial consumption is expected to see a reduction of about 4.7% as a result of the slowing economy, and the industrial forecast is about to drop to 4.2%, again, due to lower factory productions. Now, we don't have access to all the assumptions behind here. So I don't think anybody knows how quickly the economy is going to recover. In terms of electrical generation, predicting about a 3% drop in 2020. Some good news here, increase in renewables of about 11%, and a decrease of coal for generation of about 2%. Quite naturally, increase in natural gas due to favorable pricing. Okay. Renewables, of course, just make sense because it's your sunk cost. You got to run it. Now, emissions are something that we should be very aware of because the current crisis has actually benefited the planet. And the planet does a good job of healing itself. The assumption, the projection is 7.5% decline in CO2 during 2020. Unfortunately, going back to an increase in 2021. So if any of you have been to Venice, this is a picture of the Venice canals, and I promise you, you will never be able to see in them again. Okay. Having a dolphin, there was a dolphin, some jellyfish, some other things. It's amazing how quickly the planet was able to remedy the lack of traffic in that situation. So pretty impressive rebound. So you'll get a kick out of this because most of you are in the business. Should an energy efficiency and renewable energy professional be considered an essential worker during a crisis? So here comes a poll. It's a yes or no poll, so nothing to it. Lauren just turned it loose. And if any of you answer no, I'm going to be surprised. So it's running, and we'll give it a few more seconds here to go in. There's nothing easier than a yes or no question. So, Lauren, do you want to wrap it up? Wow, that's interesting. So you guys have surprised me. There's a lot more votes for non-essential worker than I expected, but we appreciate your opinion, and there's undoubtedly good, valid reasons behind that. So an interesting poll. We'll have to sort that one out as we go through. Okay. Next slide, Lauren, or kill the poll. Questions and answers. So I guess I'm on the spot. Have there been any questions that are worth addressing at this point?
Tim, I've seen this question for you, actually. It's a very interesting question. You've mentioned that the overall decline of CO2 emissions is about 7.5% during 2020. So do you think that this will affect the carbon capture initiative projects? Like this means some countries might reach their targets faster. How this will affect the planned projects to curtail CO2 emissions?
That's a really great question, and probably would be the topic of an entire new webinar. But I think renewables and CO2 reductions are a favorable outcome of the lockdown, and less transportation. The airplanes aren't flying. There's a lot of things that pollute our atmosphere that are just offline. The unfortunate situation, if you remember the slide, it said that it's probably going to go back up about 3.6%. So it's sort of a dichotomy, because if that reduction actually takes somebody and gives them their goal, all right, it's kind of artificial. So I think we need to look at that, and I would be hesitant to let any country off the hook based on an anomaly like this. So for what it's worth, that's my 2 cents.
Okay.
At this point, Oh, you're very welcome. At this point, my good friend and the man who never sleeps, Samer, is in charge. Samer, have at it.
Okay. I just have to figure out the, yeah, we have a delay in the fiber optics, so we'll see how it goes. Now, I know that everybody's worried, but we have success stories, and I wanted to start with a success story from China and Jordan. Both China and Jordan have zeroed out the cases after the lockdown. It's too much pressing. So, okay, we have to. Okay, so Jordan and China were able to zero out the cases after a complete lockdown for a period of, in the case of China, 76 days, and Jordan 50 days. So if we can do it, you can do it. What's happening is that after the lockdown, or when you get impacted, you will have a laws and regulations, different laws and regulations will take over. So there is the Defense Protection Act. So you have to make sure that I have to just figure out how the slides work, because too much pressing is taking them too far ahead and too little pressing. Okay, let's begin. Okay. So the laws and regulations definitely are in place to help us, and yes, Lauren, if you can take over, and it'll be much better. Okay. Yes, next. Yes. So let me see here. Let's just, okay. Well, I don't know what you're seeing. So it's kind of difficult here. The work, you know what, we have to figure out a way. Okay. Okay. What's happening is that after the shutdown or the stay in place orders, we have about half of the workforce around the world is out of work, or their work is delayed. So they have to go into, they have to be supported, they have to change their ways and start with transitioning into more important work and emergency work. Yes, please. Next. Okay. Okay. I can't unmute myself. Just tell me. Yes, please. Next. Yeah. Wow. Wow. It's see, between the organizer and myself, there is a time lag. So the okay. So right now there are different trends that have been discussed by colleagues, and actually the oil markets are experiencing a unique incidents. For example, the West Texas Intermediate oil has, for the first time in history, went into negative pricing. So this is something that we hope that will not be repeated this month. So we have a decrease in the transportation, tourism, hospitality, the prayer halls, the malls, and we have increase in the energy demand for the residential, healthcare, cargo, emergency, and security. So if you are lucky enough to have a digital net meter, the distribution company can read it and they can invoice you. If you have an analog old meter, then you might have a problem with the electricity meter reading, because in the shutdown nobody can do anything, and there will be some kind of regulation issued for that. So this is one of the major problems that are faced by the consumers during lockdown, of course. We do apologize for this technical difficulty. This is something nice that happened during the lockdown. So if you are in a stay at home, and what do? So the government decided that it's nice to for the kids to play with kites. So one bank donated like 100,000, and they started making kites. So the kite hit the transmission line when we had a problem, and these are actually the transmission National Electricity Power Company workers singing and dancing. So we are having fun while working as well at height. Next. So buildings, what's happening in buildings? Let's see. The critical buildings that are supporting the medical and the security, they are the most important. They're working 24 hours. They need maintenance, they need spare parts, they need checks when you get into them, the temperature, they check your temperature, they test you for the virus, they have strict ventilation systems, they have a large stock of PPEs. Of course, they need a waste management area for hazardous material, and they have to modify their use to have medical staff on site. We're not going fast enough for you guys, but we'll manage. The hotels, of course, they're being used for the quarantine of the travelers for 17 days. So you stay in your room for 17 days, 3 meals. Then you need maintenance, of course, and you need ventilation, better ventilation, and you have PPE rooms, and of course waste management systems and on-site staff, and of course they're also testing the sewage sample for positive results. Of course, plenty of temporary facilities are going on around the world. This is in Singapore to quarantine about 4,000 people. And of course, you need all energy systems, air conditioning, lighting, ventilation, mechanical, medical, food, drinks, and all kinds of electronics. China built a complete hospital for 1,200 people in 10 days. That was pretty amazing. And of course, office design buildings. You have to go back to the office and you have to do practice social distancing, and plenty of architectural firms are offering redesign of your office. So plenty of business there. Facilities that have been under lockdown for quite some time, 3-4 months, they need to be disinfected. You need to clean the water tanks. You need to clean the HVAC units. You need to have a new PPE waste management plan. You have to preserve the social distancing. You need to have surveillance cameras with 21 days of recording to monitor the people who are at your facility. And you have to update the facility management with the COVID-19 best practices. Plenty of guidelines are available on site. And they actually has a good document that it's advisable to read. And of course, while you are staying at home, you have to listen to the and read the best practices of the WHO. And these are the 10 or 15 best practices. Okay, we talked about the buildings. We talk about the second largest consumer, which is the industries. Industries are working 24 hours non-stop to produce PPEs, medical, all kinds of medicines. The packaging industry is working. The disinfection material are working very hard. Water and food industries are working very hard. The trial vaccines are a new industry. Testing kits are developing all over the world. Transportation, everything has pretty much stopped. 50% decline in the aviation, except for, of course, Europe and US. They are still working, and people are disinfecting the streets in the cities all over the world, and the animals are happy about it, and they are roaming around. So whenever you see the streets, of course, the streets of big cities are empty because of the lockdown. This is New York City. Same in the major cities around the world. Berlin, Paris, UK, London, they're all shut down. What's working is cargo. Cargo is working very hard to transport medicine, to transport equipment, vaccine test kits, and of course the big trucks are also working hard non-stop to supply what is needed. What's happening to the environment? It's getting better, less polluted. These are pictures of Italy and Beijing. And similar things are happening. The animals are roaming around the streets, and they are happy. And of course, if you see animals in the streets, you make sure that you don't harm them. Yeah. Pollution is death. What's happening is that polluted cities, they have particles in the air. Research is saying, and WHO is saying, that we have a larger percentage of death in large cities because of pollution. This is something that humans, they have to do something really serious about. So we have to be very careful next time we start moving again. Economy. What about the economy? What is going to happen? The economy. Are you worried about the economy? Economy is people. If people die, there is no economy. So people are number one in this fight. Companies are spending millions. Countries are spending billions. USA 2,000 billion. Germany, whatever it takes. They spend 600 billion euros in 3 days. France, Saudi Arabia, Spain, Austria, everybody is spending everything they can to stop this infection. So what's going to happen to the economy? You might have a sharp stop. So you then you continue at a lower pace. You might have a V shape, you might have a U shape, you might have a W shape, and whatever shape that is, but it's up to you and how much effort you put into it. What are the opportunities? The opportunities are actually limitless. Unlimited opportunities are in front of us, and we have to make sure that we use them. We are very proud of the Brazil chapter. They are producing face masks by using 3D printing. Also, all over the world, they're printing 3D medical parts, whatever is needed. And today in Senegal, they printed a respirator of 3D. Also, everything is going online. Whatever you want is online. Meetings are online. Education, entertainment, museums, city tours. Big cities are putting big cameras to see the monuments. And media, no more papers. Doctors, even doctors for non-emergency, they are also available online. The ICT is a backbone for all sectors right now. There no more face-to-face meetings. They are experiencing increased traffic by 50%. And they are also tracking patients. So you will start getting messages on your phone if you came into contact with a patient. Robotics, we're seeing robotics in Asia, Singapore, in China, they're using in hospitals, in malls, and they're using it for patrolling, they're using it for cleaning the malls. Yes. And thermal imaging helmets, drones, they're using for, of course, we are sterilizing. So now instead of security gates, we have foggy gates or rooms. These are local in Jordan produced. And Europe and the US are spending a huge amount of money on research. So everything is there. Just dig in and start solving problems and making a lot of money and making your society better. So 100 years ago, we had a second wave and it killed 50 million people. Now we have to be smarter and we have to be prepared. We have to respect nature. We have to stock on PPEs and we have emergency plan. We need emergency plan to make sure that we don't have a second wave that will kill millions. What is the road ahead? We are now in stage 1, the initial impact. 2, 3, 4 months under control. You should go into the second stage, which is the preventive measures. Masks, gloves, social distancing, quarantines. These are essential for the next 18 to 24 months, according to WHO. Then we have a third stage. These are roses from my garden. And I'd like to thank the AEE staff, Lauren in particular, Futuh and Tim for their support. And if any questions, you just email me. And this is also another innovation, a mask with your face picture on it. So just stay safe and be innovative.
So Samer, a question came in while you were presenting. One of the attendees wants to know, what has the economic impact of the virus been on Jordan?
Thank you, Tim. Jordan government was preemptive and they were tracing the pandemic since the start in December. Once we had the first case in Jordan in March 2nd, we started our procedure and we went into full lockdown on the 17th of March. We issued a stimulus package around $1 billion for all economic sectors. We also encouraged the private sector, and they donated around $200 million for different activities. And after 45 days, we started gradual opening up of businesses according to importance. And now we have mandatory PPEs for all businesses that are open. So the future is in our hands. We are back in business and carefully, and there is no room for mistakes. The safety of yourself, your family, your society is in your hand.
Well
Thank
said, Samer. You're very welcome. So we have some takeaway points. Each of us has a little something to say before we sign off. So Lauren, I guess I'm first. My point, we will get through this. Okay, it's ugly. No one has enjoyed it. The damage to the world economy really is going to be dependent on how quickly manufacturing and industry recovers. So it's we don't really know at this point. Hopefully, all the people that are getting together and are cautiously opening up businesses and getting things working, hopefully that'll work. My personal big concern is that many people have been out of work and frankly unpaid for some time, and that kind of affects how much they can afford to spend once things are open again. So I would be really happy to see that people embrace the trend to greater use of renewables. With all the amount of money and investment that most of the countries in the world are making, I hope they put some aside to continue the growth of renewables. It's a great opportunity, and I think we should do that. So is Fatou next? No, Samer, sorry. No, well, Nick.
Mine?
Yeah, so if I wanted, like, my takeaway point would be, I would like actually to reflect on the UN Secretary General on his talk on COVID-19 that he had on March 19th. He actually mentioned that the current pandemic is a human crisis that calls for solidarity. He called the world leaders to come together and offer an urgent and coordinated response to this global crisis. And he mentioned 3 critical areas of action: tackling health emergency, the social impact and economic response and recovery, and we have the responsibility to recover better. So for the first point, he mentioned that health catastrophe makes clear that we are only as strong as the weakest health system. So as energy engineers, we can take part and ensure that hospitals can run properly with uninterrupted available energy sources. This is something that we can contribute to in this point. Now, for the second point, he mentioned that this pandemic recovery must not come on the backs of the poorest. And a lot of people, because they've lost their jobs. So what we can do, I mean, our role can involve like job creation, and especially with the green stimulus, like green jobs. Now, for the third point, he mentioned that the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and Paris Agreement on climate change, and he urged that we must keep our promises for people and the planet. And this is something we definitely can contribute to through our practice in energy efficiency and also utilization of renewable energy sources. So I think this was my takeaway message. And I believe that we came to the end.
We have, and we would like to thank all the attendees for putting aside part of their days. We're going to post this webinar. It'll be on the AEE sites along with all the with all the slides. And we will soon have an announcement about the next webinar in this series. So we intend to keep this going as long as there's enough interest. So thank all of you for attending. We greatly appreciate it. Feel free to send in comments whenever it's convenient. We're happy to address things as it goes in. Samer, I know you're still here. Do you want to do your slide?
A final word. Yeah, okay. Without slides. Okay, slides. It's one slide. I think the most important thing is that you have stay happy. Nature is doing better. The virus is deadly virus. It will remain for years. You are in charge. Make sure that you wear your PPEs, gloves, and remain at 2 meters 6 feet distance. Nothing works without energy. So energy engineers are the most important people supporting all lines of defenses. The energy baselines all over the world will change. Your facility energy baseline will change for sure. You need to be flexible, need to think about resiliency, and you have to digitize your systems. There are huge opportunities for innovation and problem solving, and we as AEE are a group of 18,000 strong engineers. We are very good at problem solving and capacity building. Scientific, emergency, and medical sectors, they will experience exponential growth, and we will see exponential growth in energy sector. Well, thank you very much.
Okay, so we come to the end of this webinar, and we've enjoyed it. We've enjoyed working on this webinar together. So I would like to thank you all for attending it, and I would like to thank the AEE organizers, panelists for their efforts. And as Tim said, the webinar recording will be posted soon along with the slides. Thank you very much and stay safe.
Bye now.